Okay, so I think that you can see me now. Um, I hope you can. So I'm just gonna go for it because someone sent me a message and said, "Why does it keep stopping?" So I'm gonna take that as you can see me. You can see um me, you can hear me. If you can, if you are somewhere on one of these platforms, let me know so that I can quit looking for myself because yeah, I'm not sure. So, welcome if you are here. Welcome. I'm gonna start this live. I think that I'm broadcasting, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm not 100% sure. But if not, you know what? I can always go back and do it again. So welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are here, if you are on one of these platforms that I have this thing streaming on, just let me know. Um, if you have my number, just text me so I'll know. I have no idea what's going on because it is not doing the things that it's supposed to be doing. But hey, that's technology, and I'm not going to let that stop me because either way, I will repost this on some platform. So I can only hope that I am live somewhere. I'm not 100% sure if I am or not. Some places are telling me that they are waiting for me to start streaming, but other places are telling me that I'm actually streaming. So I'm not 100% sure, but if you are here, welcome. We are kicking off season 5. And I mean, gosh, it's crazy, right? Season 5 of You Are Not Your Trauma podcast. So I'm super, super excited for those of you who are joining me. So, again, welcome to this brand new season of You Are Not Your Trauma podcast. If you are new here, I'm your host, Harriet M. Harris, and I am absolutely thrilled that you've chosen to join me today. Um, it doesn't matter how you found me. If you've never been on the podcast, if you've never heard of the podcast, I'm just glad that you stumbled upon me and this show today. Maybe you just click play out of curiosity. Maybe you're scrolling through something and it popped up. But either way, I'm glad to have you here because now you are part of a community that is all about healing and growth. So, welcome. Glad to have you. And to all of my returning listeners, those of you in the 32 countries that we are being streamed in, welcome back, friends. I am glad that you're back. I've missed you all so much, and I'm excited that we're stepping into season 5. Like I said, season 5. Can you believe it? This has been I'm shocked. Like I can hardly believe that it's been 5 seasons, but I'm so excited. I think this season is going to be yet another very special season, a very life-changing season. It's going to be a journey that's going to be uplifting. It's going to be filled with, like always, stories and insights that will inspire. Hopefully, many of them will resonate with you, but most importantly, remind us all that we are not defined by our traumas or our bad experiences. So, while this season will feature a variety of stories and insights, today's episode is going to be a little bit different. It's very special for me. If you did not know, today is National Rainbow Baby Day. And that is a day that holds a deep personal significance in my life. Today, I'm going to share with you all my very own story. One that I've never fully shared online before. I've talked about it a little here and a little there, but I'm going to share that story with you. Something tells me that it's time, but it is a story of loss, of faith, of growth, of ultimately hope. Um, I'll be opening up about the trauma of multiple pregnancy loss. Uh, it's a journey that led me to where I am and who I am today. So get comfortable, grab you a cup of tea, coffee, a Gatorade, whatever, some water, and let's get started. I'm really honored that you're here and that I get to share this with you today. Okay, so as I mentioned, today's episode is it's really personal for me. It's only been something that I've talked about in bits and pieces. I've never fully talked about my story online. Um, but I believe in the power of stories. I believe that stories are important. I believe that when we share our own lived experiences, it helps other people. And I know that's something that I have been called to do. So, even though it makes me a little bit nervous, I want to share it because, like I said, I know that stories have the power to heal, to connect, and to remind us that we're not alone. So today, I'm going to take you back to where the journey began. I've mentioned in a post today that a lot of people have asked me this question. So my children are age 20, age 10, one will be 11 next week, and then 8. So a lot of people have asked me, why are your kids so far apart? Like, why did you start over? Like, that's just crazy. And I agree. I completely agree. But I tell them often that it wasn't me, like it wasn't my plan, that they got to take it up with God because it was his plan, not mine. And so that's really where the story began. When my husband and I decided that it was time to expand our family. At that time, my child, who's 20 years old, he was 4.5. And we thought, hey, it'll be an easy and quick process. We've done it before, we can do it again, right? Just like the first time. And little did we know that what we were actually doing was stepping onto a path that would test us in ways that we could never, ever imagine. So, the way, if I remember it correctly, we tried for 7 long months before we finally got pregnant with, for the first time in once we started trying. And we were excited. I was a little bothered, honestly, because 7 months felt like a long time. And honestly, that excitement really didn't last too long. Um, I ended up miscarrying a few weeks later. Now, I wasn't new to miscarriage because before my oldest, who was then 4.5, uh, I had a miscarriage. So my oldest son, he was my first rainbow baby. But even though I had the experience, it still hurt. Like it still bothered me. And to be perfectly honest, that was what we didn't know at the time. It was the first of many losses. And um, after a couple more losses, my doctor began doing some testing, and I was diagnosed with endometriosis. And that is a condition that actually makes it a lot more difficult for you to get pregnant. And so, and the interesting thing was, I didn't have a problem getting pregnant. I had a problem staying pregnant. So, after a few more losses, I was diagnosed with secondary infertility. And if you aren't familiar with secondary infertility, it's when you've had a baby, but you struggle to conceive again. And honestly, I had no idea that that was a thing. I was in I guess my late 20s at the time, and it was something that I'd never heard of. And truthfully, miscarriage was so like taboo. People didn't really talk about it. So a lot of that time I spent really in my feelings, feeling alone, isolating myself, just all the things. And then, especially when I got the diagnosis of the secondary infertility, it was just a blow that I wasn't prepared for. I remember feeling completely defeated, like my body had betrayed me. There was some depression, again, like I said, some isolation. Um, I felt worthless, honestly. I felt worthless as a wife, like I was failing as a wife, like I was failing as a woman, like I was failing at something that I knew that my body was naturally supposed to be able to do because it had done it before. And so over the next 3.5 years, y'all, look, one of my little people is here. Let's just let her say hi. All right. Now, thank you. Okay, so she's gonna creep around y'all until I acknowledge the fact that she was here. So there's that. But over the next like 3.5-ish years, they were filled with just a lot of things that were happening. They were filled with ovulation tests, pregnancy tests, doctor's visits, what felt like hundreds, and I do mean hundreds of blood draws, scheduled sex, and a whole lot of heartbreak. And I eventually began seeing what they call a reproductive endocrinologist, and he was like a specialist that was supposed to help me because my OB, unfortunately, she was exhausted. Like she had exhausted everything that she knew to do. So at that point, it was like, okay, you got to go somewhere else. So during those, it was a total of 4 years. I had 7 losses, um, plus the one that's where my 8 comes from, plus the one before my oldest. But during that 4 year span, I had a total of 4 losses. And I also had to have 3 different surgeries. So it felt like I was living on an emotional roller coaster. So 2 of the surgeries that I had were to remove the endometriosis so that I could possibly they could clear it out and that I could possibly, have a successful pregnancy. And when that didn't work, I was then told I had to have oh well, let me back up. So yeah. So I had the 2 surgeries, and 2 of the losses that I actually had were ectopic pregnancies or tubal pregnancies, which is so important in this day and time with the whole Roe versus Wade turnover thing, because those are actually life-threatening, and they led me to having to take medication in order to end those pregnancies, because if I didn't, then the tube could have the egg was growing in the tube and the tube could have burst and it could have cost me my life. Um, so like I said, the first 2 surgeries, they went in, they removed the endometriosis, and then when I thought really like things couldn't get any possibly like any worse, I was told that I had to have this third surgery. And then this third surgery was going to be to remove one of my ovaries. And I it felt like in that moment, like when I heard that, it felt like the ground was just being ripped from under me. It felt like just everything that I was hoping for, praying for, wishing for, like it was all like ending over. Um, it felt like I was in this never-ending cycle, just stuck in this never-ending cycle of pain and disappointment. And I was nervous and I was sad and I was depressed and all the things, all the emotions still going on. And I remember I remember feeling this way because I knew if they removed one of my ovaries, that the chances of me actually getting pregnant decreased significantly. But I I was in it. Like I was in it, so fine. I did the surgery. And when I went in for that third surgery, I remember it was October of 2012. I felt so defeated. I, I still remember like waking up from that surgery to learn that I actually had both my ovaries. So instead of one of my ovaries being removed, the doctor had found what seemed to be like the source of all those miscarriages. So apparently, there had been a cyst that was sitting on my fallopian tube ever so lightly. I wish I would have got something that would bend, but like, so this cyst, my fallopian tube, and the cyst is sitting there and it's closing it up. So the egg never got a chance to like flow down to my uterus. So at that point, when he removed the cyst, he's like, okay, let's try. Let's try it again. And I mean, for the first time in a very, very long time after that, I felt like I felt hopeful. Like I felt like, oh my God, like this is now possible again. Like, like this is gonna work. Then I went to my post-surgery appointment. And I can tell you that feeling of hope shifted really quickly. The doctor wanted me to start taking medication. And I don't remember the name of it, but the medication was supposed to potentially result in multiples. And his reasoning for that was, if I got pregnant with multiples and I lost one, at least I could still end up potentially with a baby. So first off, I was like, okay, multiples. Um, I felt multiple ways about this. First, I was like, who said anything about having multiple babies at once? Like, that wasn't anything I thought I could take on. But the bigger issue for me, too, was I kept thinking if I lost one or more than one of the multiples, it's still another loss. And that was where my struggle was. My struggle was with the losses. And it was like in that moment, it was like I knew I just couldn't do it anymore. In that moment, I quit. In that moment, I told the doctor that I was absolutely done. Like this was over for me. I didn't want any more part of it. I remember very specifically saying, if God wants me to have more children, then he's gonna have to do it, and he's gonna have to do it his way because this was just too much for me. And I got up and I walked out of the office. Now, my husband was just as stunned as I was, so he was still sitting there, just stunned. He didn't know what to do, I don't think, but because it wasn't anything that I prepared for, it wasn't a conversation that we had talked about before. It was just that I had hit my limit. And honestly, I shocked us both in that moment because I didn't know those words were going to come out of my mouth. I didn't. Um, I wish I could say that it was like this moment of total surrender and a moment that I finally relinquished control over the situation. But in reality, it was just a moment that I gave up because I was tired. And I know we have all been there, just tired of whatever battle that we're going through, whatever thing that we're facing, whatever is is driving us crazy or pushing us to our limit. I know that we've all been there at some point or another, right? So, like I said, I gave up. Then, just about 2 months later, in December of 2012, we found out that I was pregnant, and I couldn't believe it. I didn't take the medication. Like I said, I told the doctor, nope, not doing it. Um, But after everything that we had been through, it honestly felt like a miracle. Like it honestly felt like this blessing that we were, finally getting what we had been after for the past 4 years. It was like a blessing after so much heartache. And I can assure you that for me, it was the scariest pregnancy ever. It was the scariest 9.5, 10 months, whatever the numbers add up to. Um, so much so that we bought a fetal Doppler so that I could listen to the baby's heartbeat in between appointments. I have to say my doctors were really good because they knew what I had been through. They knew the stress and struggle. So when I had my moments where I was like freaking out, they would, bring me in and listen to the heartbeat. But I did. I bought that fetal Doppler because that gave me a sense of peace, but it also probably gave me a little bit of control that just popped up. So didn't even realize that, but it helped. And the following August, our prayers were finally answered. Finally, like 4 years, seven losses. And our prayers were finally answered when I gave birth to a super sweet, super adorable, extremely just chubby little baby boy. And then, about 28 months later, because God is so good. We were blessed with our little happy surprise, a beautiful, sweet little baby girl. And honestly, I couldn't have planned it all better if I tried. Like the way it turned out versus the way it started was so different. Like looking back now, what I realized is that those babies that we lost, they weren't meant for us. As painful as each loss was, and believe me, each and every one of them broke my heart just a little bit more, each one. I see now that there was a bigger plan at work, one that I couldn't see at the time, because honestly, I can't imagine my life without the three people that make me a mom. Um, my faith was definitely tested in ways that I could never have expected, but it was also strengthened at the same time. I grew in ways that I never imagined, and in ways that I didn't really begin to realize until I started to heal. I think one thing that people don't talk enough about is, and myself too. I've talked a lot about my childhood trauma because I know the different ways it has impacted me. I know the different ways that it has shaped me. But the trauma of multiple losses, whether it's one or in my case, eight, there's some trauma in that because it made me feel ways that I was not able to deal and cope with at that time, like ways, things that made me shut down. I felt isolated. I felt like I was the only person out there. And again, I share my story because I know that I'm not the only one. I know that there are other women who are going through, and men, because as the significant other, spouses, whatever the role is. um I know that there are other people that are going through something like what I went through, right? Multiple losses, secondary infertility, finding out that you have conditions that you didn't know you had. So, and then wrestling with those medical issues, wrestling with the diagnoses, the wrestling with the things that happen. And I want to take a pause. I honestly, because this has been something that's playing in my head. I saw someone post something earlier this week that said something like fertility conversations, like it's so touchy. And I say that, and I only share this because it really is, because the number of people that say it, when you gonna have another baby? Like, just, y'all, please stop asking people that. Please, let's stop worrying about other people's uterus. When people are going to expand their families, like other people's uterus is not our business. And you really don't know when a woman is struggling with fertility and she's struggling, or infertility, or having fertility issues and she's struggling in silence. You don't know what those words are doing to her by you asking that question. It may seem small, but really it can have a much greater impact than you actually know. So, like I said, I realized that it wasn't meant to be. So even though I went through everything I went through in those 4 years, I didn't understand the impact until much later when I began my own healing journey 7 or 8 years later. The experience taught me a lot even later, because it taught me to trust the journey even when it doesn't make sense, even when it hurts, even when it does, things are popping up, things are out of your control. Trust the journey. And this journey also, it taught me the power of letting go, of relinquishing control. Like I said, I wish I could have looked at it that way back then. I wish I had looked at it and said, okay, I just need to let go and relinquish control. I didn't know that then, but I do understand that now. And that's part of what I wanted to share today. Because the truth is as much as we want to be in control, to steer our own paths, to make all the decisions in our life. Sometimes the most profound growth happens when we surrender to the process and we just trust that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. It's not always easy, trust me. Like I said, you heard my journey, you heard my struggle. But on this National Rainbow Baby Day, I do want anyone who is going through anything. It may not be an issue with fertility. It may not be an issue it could be an issue with your finances. It could be just an issue of something that you have been dealing with or struggling with for some time. I want you to remember that even in our deepest pain, there is purpose. We may not be able to see it in the moment, but if we have faith and we're patient, we will find that every step of our journey is leading us exactly where we need to be. So if you're going through something that feels hard or impossible, if you're struggling with loss or uncertainty, just know that you're not alone. We are all out here struggling. It's just some of us don't want to talk about it. I'm gonna be honest, 10 years ago, I couldn't talk about it. Um, 8 years ago, I didn't talk about it. Even when I got my rainbow babies, it wasn't something that I could freely talk about. It's only been recently that it's been put into my spirit to share this story because I have had women who needed to hear it. And it's usually been on a one-to-one type of situation, but I just know that there are other people who are going through things, whether, like I said, it's this exact type of situation or something similar. And I want you to know that you're not alone. It happened to me. I got through it, and you can too. So, um, yeah, so I really want to encourage you to stay faithful and lean into the journey and trust that your blessings are coming. What's meant for you is going to find you in its time. So, thank you to everyone who tuned in. Some of you may or may not have been able to access it. I'm not really sure because I think something is going on with one of my streamings, but it's okay because I'll repost this in a couple of different places. But if you did tune in, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that my story brings some light to your own journey and just reminds you that even when things are hard, even when times are dark or they feel dark, there's always hope. Now, before we wrap up, I'd love for you to take a moment to participate in a quick poll that I've set up over in the You Are Not Your Trauma app about our journeys and how we navigate the challenges that life throws our way. Your input will not only help you and I to connect on a deeper level, but it'll also help me to guide future conversations for Your Not Your Trauma podcast. The link to the poll is going to be available in the show notes once I post the episode. But if you just go over to the app, if you don't have the app yet, listen, get the app. Go to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, download the You Are Not Your Trauma podcast, or yeah, You Are Not Your Trauma app. It's not, it doesn't say podcast, it just says You Are Not Your Trauma. But download it and you just go to the main page of the app and you can, just click take the poll. And your responses, like I said, are going to help me to better understand where we all are on our journeys and how I can continue to support you through You Are Not Your Trauma podcast and You Are Not Your Trauma Inc., our nonprofit. And don't forget, like if you select other, make sure you put in the comments like what your other is because I really am curious about your responses. Now, when you complete the poll, you're going to be entered into a drawing for a chance to win some exclusive You Are Not Your Trauma podcast merch or a one-on-one session with me to discuss healing strategies. So you may have some things that you've been trying to figure out. Hey, I want to help you because I want to help anyone who needs it to find a way to choose healing over hurting. So Whether you'd love to represent our podcast with some great merch or you're looking for a more personal conversation about your healing journey, this is just a little some extra just for you for tuning in, for taking your time out, and for completing the poll. So be sure also to leave your contact information just in case you're a winner. I want to be able to contact you. So that is just, like I said, a little thanks for you being a part of this amazing community and taking the time to complete the poll. Now, I'd love for you to join the conversation. If you are connected with me on socials, you can drop it in the comments or you can create your own post. But I want you to share your experiences of navigating pregnancy loss, of faith, or the journey of relinquishing control with us on socials if you're comfortable using the hashtag YANT Rainbow Baby. And be sure to tag at You Are Not Your Trauma Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. Let's continue to support each other and learn from one another because your story could be the light that someone else needs to go on. Yeah, this is that happy little surprise. You see her?
I'm the miracle of the family. No, I'm the surprise.
Yep, happy surprise. So she knows her role. But anyway, so to everyone, like I said, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of You Are Not Your Trauma Podcast. If you know anything about the podcast, you know I've never done this live. So you are a part of something new and special. But I thank you for being here. Your presence is a vital part of this journey. So if you found this episode helpful, don't forget to share it with someone who can benefit from this information that was shared. Also, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the show. You can check out the website, www.youarenotyourtrauma.com. You can leave feedback there, request to be a guest on the show, subscribe to the show, get information about our show guests, or to get information about advertising on You Are Not Your Trauma podcast. You can connect with You Are Not Your Trauma podcast on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok at You Are Not Your Trauma podcast. And if you have a story to share, let me know. Contact me by emailing me at contact@harrietmharris.com. Now, if you need additional resources for your journey of healing and self-discovery, I want you to download the You Are Not Your Trauma resource guide. Now, that is available through the app, or you can visit my website and go to resourceguide.youarenotyourtrauma.com. Now, as we move forward into this season 5, I look forward to exploring more stories of healing, growth, and the power that we all have to overcome. I want you all to remember, you are not your trauma. So until next time, take care of yourself and keep shining. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.
Having troubles?
Nope, just trying to end it.
Thought it already ended on a GoPro.